Hi, I'm Angel from Fleece Fun, and today we are making this adorable half apron, and it's actually a great beginner project. It's easier than it looks. Let's get started. All right, so for this project, you are going to need a dollar store plate. Yes, I will show you what it's for in a minute. You're going to need a half yard of fabric A and a half yard of fabric B. Of course, a rotary cutter, ruler, and mat. You'll also probably want a turning foot. That will make your life a lot easier. And of course, sewing essentials and that sort of thing. So let's get started. And I know you're dying to know what that plate is for, and I'm going to show you. So you're going to take your rotary cutter, ruler, and mat, and you're going to take your handy dandy plate, and you're going to place it on the outside corner with the selvage cut off. And that's going to be the bottom part of your apron, and we're going to make a nice curve. We're just going to go along the edge, and you might have to do it a couple of times just to get all of it off. There it is. Nice curved corner. And it was only $1. Perfectly good sewing tool. All right, now we're going to move on to our B fabric. Now, currently I have two sections that are 9 inches wide by 40 inches. That's really good for about a medium size. If you need a size larger than that, I recommend cutting one more strip so you have 3 strips. But for this apron, I'm going to use 2. And what I'm going to do is, so I don't have a seam running down the center of it, I'm actually going to take one of my strips and I'm going to cut it in half. So I will have one strip that is 9 inches by 40 inches, and I'm going to have 2 strips that are 9 inches by 20 inches. Okay? And what I'm going to do is I am going to sew them together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance so they're all one big strip. So, right sides together, and we're going to take this over to the sewing machine. All right, now that we have all those strips sewn together, we are going to iron them a special way. So I'm going to take one side and I'm going to turn it under a 1/2 inch. And I'm just going to use my handy measurer here, turn it up, and of course just go along and press that. All right, now that one side's done, we're going to do the other side, but we're going to do that 1 inch, and that's the side that we're going to be sewing on the gathering. And so we want to just give ourselves a little more room. So we're just going to turn that up 1 inch. Same method all the way down. And once I'm done here, I'm going to take the whole thing and I'm going to fold it in half and iron it. So that will be our band. So now I'm just going to kind of fold it in half. And if I can, I want this side to be just a titch longer than the other if I can help it as I'm going along. So I'm just going to keep an eye here and take your time. And one more thing before I forget. We have to make sure that we have nice ends to our sash. So I'm just going to turn it under about 1 inch and press that close so I have a nice, clean, and finished edge for the sash. Okay, now we can work on the skirt. So do a baby hem all the way around, except for the top of the apron skirt. And if you haven't, be sure to check out our video on how to do a tiny or a baby hem so you know what this is. All right, so along the top where we didn't finish the edge, we're going to gather it. So I'm just going to gather it by hand using a really long basting stitch. If you want to learn more about gathers, be sure to check out our tutorial we have on gathering and the different kind of feed and different methods you can use to gather it. So what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of gather the apron into a light ruffle, and how you want to do that is completely up to you, how tight of a ruffle or how loose. You get to be the designer. All right, so now it's time to take the skirt and the sash and bring it all together. So you're going to take your sash that you set aside, all nicely pressed, and you're going to want to fold it in half and just mark where the halfway point is. We're going to do the same thing with the skirt. So we're going to fold the skirt in half so we know where the halfway point is and mark it with the pin. It doesn't have to be exact. No one will notice if it's a little off. All right, so now that we know where the half points are, we want those to meet up. Now, we're kind of going to be using this sash as giant bias tape, so follow me on this. What we're going to do is we're going to take the wrong side of the apron and meet it up with the 1-inch right side of the fabric there, okay? We want that to kind of line up with the center there, and it roughly does. And we're going to pin it like this. Okay, so we're going to pin this together. And then, kind of like bias tape, we're going to use that crease we made with the iron, and we are going to sew in that crease. All right, now that this is all nicely pinned, or almost nicely pinned. There we go. We're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew in that crease, and then we're going to do the magic trick. All right, so we're just going to sew in that crease that we have there, just a straight stitch. Just use the center line on your foot as your guide. And we're going to sew the apron on. Finish off the seam right there at the edge of the apron. All right, so now that we have that sewn on to the bottom of the sash there, we're going to take the sash and, using our crease, fold it over. And basically you want to look here and make sure that you're covering up all of the seams that you just sewed, all of the thread that you've gathered and all of that. Make sure that it's covered. All right, now it looks like you can just leave it there and sew. Don't do that. You want to pin it in place so it doesn't move. But actually, we're not going to start here. We're going to start at the very end of the sash and go all the way down, top stitching. If you haven't had a chance to learn about top stitching, we have a great video tutorial that discusses top stitching and the techniques for it. Check that out before you do this. All right, I'm going to pin this into place, and we're going to sew it on. All right, to make my life a little bit easier as I'm sewing along the edge, I'm going to be using my edging foot. So I can just butt the fabric up right against that blade, makes it really easy. While I'm sewing the sash, I'm going to sew the end shut too. So I'm going to sew down the end, turn the corner, and sew all the way across. And honestly, the biggest secret when it comes to sewing is, especially top stitching, is go slow. It's not a race. You want it to look nice. So I'm just going to take my time and not turn the corner correctly. So while you're at the skirt, just take your time and work your way across. And again, just make sure you're covering up those other stitches. All right, so now that I've sewn the bottom on, one last extra really nice touch that you can do is sew along the top. It just gives it a nice edge to it, and it keeps the sash from kind of poofing out and looking funny. So just finish off that top edge, and it gives it a nice crisp line.